As real estate agents and lenders right now, this downtime is the perfect opportunity for you to pick up a new piece of technology, new tools, read some great sales books, go out there and hone your skills in your down markets. Because when the market turns and you have half the competition out there, when you get out of the gates, you want to go out there and kick ass. So let's use this downtime. We can make this something positive. It just depends on how you spend your downtime. So spend your downtime just really saturating yourself in things that are going to help your business. Because guys, I've said it a million times, you don't learn shit in a good market. You learn nothing.
Because the management and transparency is what's very important. So once you submit a referral, you're going to have your own Home Advantage account, and it's going to tell you where everything sits. So if you have 10 referrals that you've sent into the network, it's going to give you all 10 referrals. It's going to tell you every milestone that client is sitting in, whether they're touring homes, whether they're in escrow. And you now can manage through the Home Advantage application as far as what your pipeline looks like for the referrals that you've sent. And so it's pretty sophisticated, and it's all click of a button, guys.
Well, hello there, LabCoatAgents. As we learned that Brian did not have a good night's sleep last night, we hope you can pull through for the 30 minutes while we educate some folks. I'm Sean Curley. We have none other Brian Stevens with the National Real Estate Post with us every single month to go over what the hell's going on in the real estate market. And before we start, if you guys like the content that Brian brings, make sure you go to your app store, download the NREP app on your mobile device. You get his daily updates each and every day. And I just love what you and your team do each and every day, Brian. So thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
So one of the big talking points that you guys had last week, it was a two-part special, banks. We all heard about the bank in Silicon Valley, going down, and that it really started causing a ripple effect with some other banks. And there might be what you call the black swan event that could happen if there's a huge run in deposits, where like 186 banks could be in trouble if everyone just tried to go to their bank right now and pull out all their money. And one of the banks that you highlighted was Schwab. I know they're big.
I had no idea, by the way.
I didn't know they're this big.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read off some stats that you guys highlighted. Schwab alone has 33.8 million active brokerage accounts, 2.3 million corporate retirement plan participants, 1.7 million banking accounts, and the big one is 7.3 trillion in client assets. Is that 7.3 trillion of people's money just sitting in their bank that they can use?
No, that money's got to work for them. But
okay,
I read before, if you look at if you take all the currencies of the entire world, the yuan, the yen, the Deutschmark, they don't have the Deutschmark anymore. Yeah. The euro, the pound, the dollar, the peso, the loonie and toonie up in Canada. You take if you take all the money in the world and figure out what its value is, Charles Schwab is basically dealing with about a fifth of the entire world's money right now. The numbers are I had to go look at that a few times. I'm like, there's no way that this is real. Turns out it's real. So no, that's the thing with banks is money has to work for them. So if you just keep the money, you're just holding the money, you're going to actually lose money because you're paying interest on that. You're paying a dividend on that of sorts, depending on where they put their money. It could be in bonds, or it could be in a savings account. Well, it just doesn't really matter. You're going to be paying something on that. So the idea is that you want to make that money work for you so you don't lose money. So let's say a bank has a 20-to-1 leverage ratio, meaning if somebody deposits $1 million, that bank can actually lend $20 million with that $1 million deposit. So it's a 20-to-1 a leverage ratio. Now, here's what happens. They're going to lend out money, but where are they going to get that money from? They only have $1 million, but they're going to lend out $20 million or $20 million. Well, that money comes from the Fed. Okay. So the Fed, the Fed fund rate 6 months ago was 0.25%, 0.5%. They were actually calling it at or around nothing, but let's just call it 0.5%, which is high. So the bank has $1 million in deposits, which allows them to lend out $20 million. So they borrow 20 million from the Fed. They're paying a 0.5% interest on it. And that money that's working for them, they're going to say, let's say they're charging 3.5%, which they were charging more, but let's just call it 3.5%. That means on that $20 million, they're making 3% profit. That's a pretty good gig for a bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what happens is the Fed comes in and raises over a very short period of time. We go from at or around 0 up to 7.5, 7.75. Let's just call it 7.5 right now. I think it's 7.75. So now that money, that $20 million that they have outstanding right now, they're paying the Fed 7.5%, and they're earning 3.5%. So they're losing 4% now on that $20 million. This is catastrophic to a lot of banks, and this is what happened to SVP. So what do we do now? So now I got to take these bonds, these treasuries, whatever it is I have out there outstanding at 3.5%, and I need to sell that to raise capital because I'm bleeding. I'm a stuck pig and I'm bleeding right now because where I was making 3%, I'm now losing 4%. So I need to raise money by selling off. I got to sell off my part of our portfolio. But you see, the thing is, nobody wants to buy a 3.5% loan. That's the return you're going to get in a 7.5% market. Nobody wants. Why would you do that? I'd rather get 7.5 on my money than 3.5 on my money. So what they do is they discount that note. So let's say I have let's say I have $21 million notes outstanding. I'm not selling that note for $1 million. I'm going to sell that note for 60 cents on the dollar. So I'm going to sell it for $600,000. And I, the bank, am going to eat $400,000. But that cash to me is more important right now because that person who put that $1 million in has moved his money somewhere else where it's going to get him a better return. So I have to raise more capital. So I sell my next one, 400,000. I lose that. So you lose 400,000, 10 times, 40 million bucks. So now I have 40 million in the hole, but I unloaded all of those assets. Now, here's the problem. When we do this, if we find ourselves in a position to where we're going to default on any of these deals, or we're not making our payments on time, or we're actually paying late, these banks, their FDIC insurance is going to go up tenfold. So again, let's say we're paying $100,000 for insurance annually. Now it's going to be $1 million a year for insurance annually. So the Fed set off a row of dominoes that went down. And for those of you who don't know what a black swan event is, a black swan event is something that is unforeseeable. So, you go to, this is a really bad analogy, but I'm just off the cuff. You go to a baseball game. Okay, what's going to happen? Your team's either going to win, your team's going to lose. You might see a fight in the stands. You're going to spend too much money on hot dogs, sodas, and beer, and cotton candy and stuff like that. And then a plane crashes in the stands. That would be a black swan event. It was completely unforeseeable. Like, you don't go to a baseball game saying, I wonder if a plane's going to crash in the bleachers.
Yeah.
So it's something that you cannot predict, and yet it still happens. This is the way of life. And by the way, there's a great book that I'd love to share with you guys. And you can take advantage of black swan events, smaller ones that happen in our life all the time. So they're referring to this as a black swan event. But what I just laid out to you, does that sound like something that was unforeseeable? If the Fed knows that all these banks are lending money at 3.5% on money they don't have from the Fed, and they raise it to 7.5, 7.75, the Fed knows those banks are going to have to eat it, absolutely eat it. So to say that this was unforeseeable is fool's gold. This is absolutely foreseeable, but we say these things because what everybody in government likes to do is they like to project. It's not my fault, it's your fault. What the hell is wrong with all of these banks? This was unforeseeable. I can't believe this happened. Now we're going to have to bail them out once again. Time out, guys. You caused this, and you know it. I'll get off my diatribe here in a moment. But if we go back to, our COVID money that we got when we started basically counterfeiting money. The Fed was counterfeiting money. Let's call it for what it is. So when the Fed they decided that they were going to create $9 trillion more dollars where it didn't exist before and throw that into the economy. So that's counterfeiting. They made money where it didn't exist. It didn't cost them anything. They didn't earn it. They simply created it because the Fed has that capability. So when you take $9 trillion and you throw it into the economy, it's going to dilute every other dollar that had previously existed. That dollar that you had no longer is worth as much. Okay. So and when your dollar isn't worth as much, what happens? We get inflation. So the inflationary game that we're playing right now, frankly, it seems to me it's almost by design, because I mean, stupid me. And by the way, I'm not an economist. I didn't go to Princeton. I didn't go to Harvard, but I was looking at the stuff when they were printing this money and I was going, my God, this is going to create a horrible inflationary scenario. And in fact, that's exactly what we saw. So now what is the Fed trying to do? The Fed seeing inflation. And so they're raising their rates. They're lowering their balance sheet. They're essentially, and I've said this before, they have a chemotherapy approach to our economy. Yes, we're going to try to get inflation under control by making everything more expensive. But in the process of doing so, we're going to destroy lives, careers, businesses, and industries. And what we're seeing happening with the banks right now to control inflation is destroying our banks. Now, is that going to have a global effect or even an effect on us at home here in the States? And the answer is we're seeing it right now. So our banks are struggling. And so what has the Fed now come out and done? They said, well, we're going to insure all the money in the banks, which is really great for huge companies. It doesn't help the little guy like me and you. I'm paying $6 for a loaf of bread. I don't give a crap if they're going to insure more than $250,000 with any given bank. By the way, did you know Roku? Roku has $500 million with SVB. $500 million. So are they going to lose $499,500,000 because that's where they should be? No, the Fed and the federal government came in and said, we're going to guarantee absolutely everything. We're going to take care of Roku's $499 million. But you know, it's me and Curly over here. We're and everybody watching this, we're kind of up against the wall. So this is what's happening with our banks right now. We're in the middle of it. And I'll tell you guys, you should start reading articles on this, because if you have kids or grandkids, I guarantee you in 10 years, they're going to be studying what's taking place right now in your high schools, your junior colleges, and your colleges. We don't know what the outcome of this is going to be, but I guarantee you, this is going to be a topic of conversations, not only for decades, but probably centuries. Just like we talk about the Great Depression, we still kind of understand what that was about. You know, where do you get your stock tips? From your cab driver? You know, the joke being everything's going to make money. But when the pendulum swings the other way, boy, does it really. And I think we're kind of seeing that right now.
Yeah, it really brings to light how fragile these systems are. And you start tinkering around, making huge changes like that, you know, bad things will happen. Even like Deutsche Bank, even on the other side of the world, they did a $5 million trade and credit default swap, and their stock went down 12% because of fear. Like, oh, they're shaking, so their stock basically just crashed, you know, or, you know, lost a ton of money.
Well, yeah, you know, it's we have a global economy. What happens in Asian markets, our markets and European markets, we're also commingled and intertwined right now. You know, and they go back to Credit Suisse and saw what happened to Credit Suisse, and now the European markets, they're freaking out. And so, yeah, everybody's jittery right now, waiting for the hammer to fall. Now, the thing is with the European markets, like, and if you've seen any of the riots in France lately, yeah. So what happened is their prime minister, he raised their the minimum age for what they have as their equivalent of Social Security. They didn't have Parliament pass anything over there. He basically said, I'm going to fall on the sword so you guys don't have to. But here's the thing. Their Social Security system that they have is absolutely, totally broken and bankrupt right now. It is not sustainable. They have no other option but to raise the minimum age. And here's the thing, when you raise the minimum age, just like we did with our 401k loans when they raised the minimum age on that, the reason they're doing that, guys, is because we need old people to die. No, I'm dead serious. No, they raised the minimum age. No, we're gonna with our 401ks or our 203ks, or our reverse mortgages, and we do that with Social Security. When we're raising that minimum age, We want people to die before they can collect on their Social Security because we need to hold on to funds because we've reallocated these funds to areas that are not they're not intended for. We're building roads and bridges and all that stuff with Social Security money that's supposed to be our retirement. That's the same thing in France. Anyways, my point is this: is that in the European markets, which is different than ours, they all have their central bank, but they don't have the autonomy that we have. The global currency, and that's another story, the yuan from China is about to take over as a global currency.
Yeah.
But when you look at with what we do, we have the capacity, the capability, because we're autonomous, to go ahead and print money, even if it's a bad decision. We can do it, and we did do it. France doesn't have that because they're part of the Eurozone. And so they can't print money because that's going to dilute money in Spain and Greece and and Portugal and Germany and everywhere else. So they don't have the autonomy to go ahead and print more money, dilute their currency in order to have their Social Security system and make it sustainable. So European markets right now, they're looking at this stuff. They're saying, wait a minute, these banks start to fail. We don't have a country who can go in there and actually fix these things. If they fail, it's going to be a hard landing. And so, yeah, people are freaking out.
Well, let's get people out of the cars driving to the banks, pulling all their money out and putting it in Folgers cans and putting it in the backyard. But let's get them driving back to the office. You were talking about how the working from home, which sounds like a great idea, but now there's studies out showing that people are probably a little bit less efficient working from home than the office. Totally. But there's another consequence, and I see it even here at our office. I mean, there's 3 people here. We used to have 20, but everybody's working from home. The working from home mindset is turning our cities into The Walking Dead. Was like, kind of funny, but there's a lot of truth to it. Like, there's really nobody, if they can work from home, or if they can work 3 days out of 5 from home, that they are, and it's really hurting the infrastructure of the cities.
Yeah, I mean, well, if you think about it, if I was working from home right now, I would still be in my underwear.
Yep.
I haven't showered yet. Oh, by the way, it's currently 9:16. I'm on the West Coast, guys. I haven't showered yet. I'm probably eating a cream of wheat or something like that with too much honey and brown sugar and crap like that, watching daytime soap operas. That's what I'm doing right now. But no, I got to show up to work, which means I got to do my due diligence. So what's happening is, so you have these, this is twofold here. The first part of it is that, and we're going to talk about something cheery, I promise you.
Yes.
Here's a cheery part. If you want to get office space, now's the time to do it. You could get it for next to nothing. All these ghost towns. Every like closed down Best Buy and Bed Bath & Beyond is going to be a mega church somewhere now. Healed, because they have all these shopping centers. They're just all boarded up now, even where we live. So what's happening is, people are working from home. And what do? We're taking that commerce and we're moving it away from our city centers, right? Our metro hubs. So this has a huge effect. First of all, companies are now downsizing how much office space they need, which is putting massive stress on commercial real estate investors. Think about where do you get your coffee in the morning? Where do you go out for lunch with your coworkers? All those businesses are getting scuttled right now. Like, I'm not kidding you. 50% of all small businesses in the city of San Francisco are gone.
That's sad. Either
because everyone's working from home or because they're sick of having people walking in and stealing everything and being able to get away with it. But that's another story for another day.
Yeah. So as long as it's under $1,000, you're good.
Yeah. So this is what's happening right now. That's why one of the reasons is we're seeing the employers saying, hey, we want you to come back to work. It's better for the business and it's better for the cities that we love. Right. Mm-hmm. The other part of the other issue with commercial real estate right now is they're all on adjustable rate mortgages. Everything is. And a lot of these are set to the Fed fund rate. Okay. So it's just like a residential loan where you have your index and your margin, where you have a margin, which is a fixed number. So say it's 2%, or no, let's say it's 3%. That number never changes. Then you have an index. Your index fluctuates and it goes up and down. So the Fed fund rate, it was at 0.5%. So that means that that investor in that commercial real estate was paying 3.5% on their money. You take the 0.5% over here from your index, you add it to your margin. So we have 0.5% and 3%, 3.5%, right? Now that it's 7 3/4, we take 0.5%, 7 3/4, and it's 8 1/4. So as these loans right now are recasting to their higher adjustable rate that they must pay, you're seeing massive increases in the amount of out-of-pocket money investors have to spend. And as a result of that, and the fact that most of their tenants are looking at scaling down, and frankly, a lot of them are just scuttling their businesses, it's putting enormous pressure on commercial real estate. And this is going to be as big, if not bigger, than what's taking place with residential mortgage lending. Now, just a side note here, just real quickly, how do you think this is affecting banks? And the answer is everything I told you before. Well, let's pile this on top of it, and we find ourselves in a real dubious situation. The federal government, guys, the federal government is going to come in, and they're not going to allow everything to blow up. It's just not going to happen. But this is as you start to kind of read the tea leaves of the direction of commercial real estate, this certainly looks the direction it's going. And when you read the tea leaves of our banks, not only nationally but internationally, this seems to be the trend where they're going.
Yeah, and but that's enough of the negative. Let's go with some positive now, right?
I finished my chicken coop.
Yes, congratulations. Existing home sales, even with rates high and people not wanting to the affordability, going lower, whatever, existing home sales were up 13.8% in February.
That's a big number too. By the way.
Huge.
Now, I mean, we're basically, you got to get a spatula and peel us off the mat that, what our numbers are. But I'll tell you what, going in the right direction is going in the right direction. Here's where, as a realtor or lender, you should take a little bit of comfort in this, and we got to take it where we can get it, is this was from February. Now, February's numbers are generally always down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the middle of winter, people are nesting, your post-New Year's kind of hangover type of thing. If you didn't move before and get that house, it's just, it's historically, it's a down market, yet we're trending up. Higher interest rates tend to have a negative impact on markets. We have higher interest rates, and still, in spite of that, our numbers are up. We also have more housing starts are up, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that where they start actually, framing houses, and permits to build new houses are actually up. In spite of the fact that the National Association of New Home Builders, their sentiment is not where we would want it. We wouldn't think this would happen. So in spite of rates, in spite of the market, those are up as well. These are all positive signs. And here's the thing, guys, listen, this market might be kicking your ass. It's kicking my ass too, because we are dependent upon lenders and mortgage companies, for what we do. And so when they have hit hard times, we do too. So we're all in the same old pen of crap over here, But here's the thing. We always see a jump in spring. Spring is right around the corner. So if we're seeing positive numbers right now, we should, theoretically see even better numbers come spring. So I would expect a slight uptick in terms of sales and opportunities and listings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, there's conjecture and speculation. But it looks like the Fed is starting to mellow out on raising rates. They don't have the hawkish tone as they've had for the past year, trying to figure the thing out. And basically, all they're trying to do is follow what Volcker did in the 1980s. Volcker was a Fed chief back then, and he went from like 4% to 15% like 3 weeks. I mean, he blew everything up, but it had a good effect. So, anyways, we might see the Fed kind of cooling their jets a little bit, which is good for all of us. We might see a little bit of a dip in rates, which is good for us. And spring might just give us a little bit of traction on what we already see to be some pretty decent numbers. And just let me fit this in real quick. As real estate agents and lenders right now, this downtime is the perfect opportunity for you to pick up a new piece of technology, new tools, read some great sales books, go out there and hone your skills in your down markets. Mm-hmm. Because when the market turns and you have half the competition out there, when you get out of the gates, you want to go out there and kick ass. So let's use this downtime. We can make this something positive. It just depends on how you spend your downtime. So spend your downtime just really saturating yourself in things that are going to help your business. Because, guys, I've said it a million times, you don't learn shit in a good market. You learn nothing. We just came from lenders. I've said this, it's like we're taking tickets and making pastrami sandwiches. Calling number, 47, that doing loans was like that. There was no sales in it. We were doing meat and potato, Fannie Freddie, Jenny loans. It was just, there was nothing to it. Now we have complex non-QM loans, which I call inclusionary loans, because they find a way to get people into houses. Learn more about some of these products out there. You know, as a real estate agent and a lender, you know, these DSCR loans that they have, they're qualifying the property. They're not even qualifying your borrower. You find a property that pencils, and then you just go find the investor. You basically have to find a 2-plex, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-plex, 8-plex. If you go with Oak Tree, they go up to 10 units.
Wow.
Now, and so you go in there and you say, okay, what's the rent going to be on these 10 units? Okay, so these 10 units, I'm getting $1,000 a piece. Great, $10,000 a month. I put 20% down and buy this 10-plex. What's my payment going to be? My payment's going to be $9,980. Perfect. It pencils. It's a done deal. You don't have to do shit at that point. Nothing. So here's the thing you could do with a DSCR loan. If you're always trying to find the client, find the client. Go compete with other real estate agents, you know, who are going to dilute your message. Same thing with lenders. You know, go find then once you find a client, then you find the property. The cool thing about this is you find the property, you qualify the property, not even the client, you qualify the property. And then once you have something that's going to actually make money, you turn around and you talk to people, you talk to investors, you talk with your neighbors, you talk with anybody and say, hey, I have a property right now that I can show you mathematically that this thing is going to pencil you money and you're going to build equity off this right now if you bought it. Who wants to buy this? And so, again, the point being here is use this as an opportunity to hone your skills. So when the market changes, you learn everything in bad markets, guys. Nothing in good markets, everything in bad markets. So when the market does change, that you guys are in a much better situation to take full advantage of the wonderful opportunities that you will have. And I guarantee you it will happen.
Yeah, and I like what you said about during slow markets is the time to invest, because what's the normal? Oh, we're slow, I can't spend any money. Oh, we're slow, I can't do this, whatever. And that's normally the time that you need to be doubling down and working on your efficiencies and working on your prospecting and things of that nature. But also knowing your numbers and being the expert in your field, because let's just talk about the media. They always spew negativity. That's what gets the clicks. That's how they can sell to advertisers. We had X amount of clicks on this one article, whatever. Well, a couple of weeks ago, they came out and said, here comes the housing crash. We're down 0.2 of one, we're down 0.2% on home values. What they were actually talking about was the median price of all homes sold. If you bundle them all up, the median price went down 0.2 of 1%. We're still like the average median price is $363,700. That is nuts to me. I'm in the Midwest, so that is a big loan for the average. Out in LA or whatever, that's just a garage. But what I don't understand is, or what pisses me off is that they always spew out the negativity, and then us as the professionals, we have to explain. Yeah, it went down 0.2% as far as the median price. But your house is still going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today. The reason why that went down is that there was more smaller homes at smaller price points that sold. They were up. The bigger girl, bigger boy homes, there was less sales. So therefore it moved the needle over just a little scooch. But look at what's happening in the real estate market now. Any open houses, they're busy. Any new, properly priced homes, multiple offers, 7, 10, 15 offers going over ask again. So just wrapping it up, whenever people read the headlines that housing market's going down, or that there's going to be a crash, just educate the folks and know the reason why that is 100% wrong, that this is the actual data, this is what's actually happening in our market, and today is the time to buy, because this house today is going to be worth more than next week or next month, or if I'm going to wait 6 months before I buy. That's probably the wrong decision.
Yeah, I got 2 points to that. Hey, Joanna, how many cities over the past year no longer have $1 million listings or $1 million houses? How many?
It's the typical home is no longer $1 million, and it's since July. It's from July to January.
Okay, July to January. 58. So there's 58 cities in the country from July to January. From July to January, who no longer boast $1 million homes. Okay, so what's happening is our high-end houses, they're just not moving as much. They're at these higher interest rates, they're just not moving. And when you have these real high value, these are $1 million and over. So you're looking at, when you're right, when you look at like Palo Alto, Mendel Atherton, Beverly Hills, Orange County, Manhattan, certain areas where, you'll find a house for $40 million. Well, they all drop to $30 million. Well, that's going to have an effect on the median price of a house, but you're absolutely 100% right here. When you're looking at houses that I think we all kind of work within, they're still cranking. They're absolutely cranking. And I'll tell you, if rates drop a little bit more, they're going to continue cranking even more so. So, yeah, I mean, you're right there. And again, these are interesting things to really understand, for realtors and lenders. And I think that we certainly need to know about this. And the reason is because as Sean says, if the media is putting out misconceptions, and they do, by the way, by design, because the corporations that own the 7 media outlets, and there's only like 7, they also own a lot of these huge hedge funds, or they're massively invested in these massive hedge funds who are buying, the Blackstones of the world who are out there buying up properties left and right. So it certainly behooves them to use all of their assets, make all of their assets work for them. And if I can scare you out of buying a house, that means I can go ahead and put that in my portfolio. So this is I think slightly by design. What it tells me, guys, and this is just the highest and best use of your time right now. What you need to be doing is you need to be getting in front of your clients, your sphere of influence, the people around you. You need to dispel some of these misconceptions that are going on out there. And in the process of doing so, you're staying top of mind with people. You're staying top of mind with the people who are going to essentially support your lifestyle when they need to borrow somebody else's money, or in the case of real estate agents, when they need to list their house. So this, and I know everybody hates like calling your clients because you think you're bugging them. We all tell ourselves lies. But now we're not calling and asking for a sales. We're calling into saying, hey, just checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. Say, hey, I got a couple articles here to let you know kind of what's really going on right now, because the media is really making it look like there's a fire sale on real estate. Everything is falling apart. And in fact, that's not the truth. They say, because if we were increasing at an annual adjusted rate at 6%, now we're only, going up 3%. They're saying, oh, real estate's down 3%. No, it's not. Still up 3%. It's just not up 6%. So staying in front of your database, your sphere of influence, is really just, it will only serve you well. If you call up and have these conversations with your clients, one of 3 things will happen. Okay. They will either hang up on you. So what? That means you probably did a really bad job when you or they will take the information and do nothing with it, but absorb it. And now they're thinking of you. Or they will take the information and say, hold on a second, I need something, or I know one of my friends who needs help right now. And by the way, in the course of that conversation, you should say, do you know anybody else who I should call who might be interested in hearing what's going on with real estate right now? Because I'd love to talk with them. We're trying to dispel, some of the negative narratives that are taking place right now. No, but see, there's not a 4th option on there. The 4th option being they're going to be so pissed off that you called them, they're going to scream and yell and cuss at you, and they're going to call all their friends and say what a horrible human being you are, so nobody will ever work with you again. That's not even an option. So you have 3 options, and they're all positive. There's no negative outcome from calling your database. Do I get 2 more seconds? Just 2 more seconds. And here's the reason you need to call. You could CRM them, you could slide dial them, you could text them, you can instant message them, you can email them, you can do all of those things. Okay. Now, those are all easy to ignore. They just are. They're easy to ignore. When they pick up the phone, ignoring is out the window. Now, the other thing is maybe they do have a friend, but they're not thinking about it, because why the hell would they? I don't know what my friends want or need. Maybe I do, but if I'm talking with somebody, I'm not, oh yeah, what about Kian? Oh yeah, what about Joanne? Oh, what about Thomas? We don't do that like in our day in and day out, because we're kind of concerned about ourselves, but maybe that would come up over the course of a conversation if we had one. So when you have the conversation, you're actually putting your client in a position to kind of start thinking in your world, and you might find some positive things that come out of it. And you only get that. These are the black swans out there. You only get that from having an actual conversation with them. And I know this because our team has been doing calls this last week, and I called this lady up, and we have lists of people for different things that we do. And she's a wholesale account rep. That's what I have her as. I started BSing with her. She's up in Indiana. I'm like, oh, you're a Hoosier, huh? I'm like, oh my God, I'm surrounded by Hoosiers. And so we started talking about this. And she goes, oh yeah, I've watched your show for a long time. I remember you back in the HVCC days. She goes, no, I'm not an account rep anymore. I go, oh really? I'm like, I have you down as an account rep. She goes, no. She goes, I work for the largest AMC, the first AMC in the country. I go, you do? She goes, yeah. She goes, in fact, we were just purchased by a huge conglomerate who's going through and buying these AMCs all around the country. There's a news story for you that's coming down. There's a company that is gobbling up all AMCs. We're going to have one national AMC distributor before too long. And she goes, you know what? We actually kind of need some advertising, and you have a strong history with appraisals. Maybe we could do that together. And I'm like, absolutely. Let's have a conversation and see what this thing looks like, to see if we could figure out what what a contract would work for, would look like for both of us. That conversation never takes place with an instant message, with a text message, with an email, a slide out, none of that. It requires the conversation, because then when you have the conversation, it can go and it can splinter into so many opportunities out there, and you just need to be patient and have those conversations.
100%. It's just it's the mindset that people need to get over. And, this market's switching back to what, whenever we had to get aggressive, as banks, with like the cash offer programs and the seller guarantee programs and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a little bit over a year since those are really prevalent. So agents, get with your lenders and start talking about how to make your buyers a lot more attractive than the other 15 offers that are coming in. But Brian, we're out of time, my man. I always appreciate you. And thanks everybody that joined us today, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.